I know, it's about time. But in today's video, I'm taking the Made in Germany remake of the Predator Mania to the pitch to see what the fuzz is all about. And I mean, a Mania remake in the OG colorway, put together by hand in Adidas' Scheinfeld factory in Germany. It's gotta be good, right? Right? I mean, yes and no. So in today's video, I'll tell you about the boot, what it's like to play in, and of course, if this 22-year-old boot still holds up to date, to ultimately help you decide if you should buy a pair of these or not, in the link to Unisport right up there. So let's go. And we can start as always with the upper, where Adidas have tried to closely replicate what you find on the original Mania from 2002. And they've done a rather good job, should we say, except of course for one quite important difference, and that is the fact that this is made out of kangaroo leather and this is not. So if you are a Predator and you care about those things, that is a potential red flag. But to be fair to Adidas, the calf leather that they've used here is actually quite alright, especially when you break it in the full foot at least. And I'll be honest with you, when I saw this for the first time in the factory at Scheinfeld, I was a little bit a little bit underwhelmed, because I think I'd simply expected it to be softer, especially knowing how soft it could be on some of the earlier remakes of the Mania. This one from 2020. Again, to be fair, when you break it in, the full foot is actually quite nice. It becomes really soft, rather supple, and it gives you that very leather-like feel that just really accommodates the shape of your foot very well. The midfoot is rather stiff, and it stays like that in my experience, which is what it is. But again, once you break it in, you give it a little bit of time and love, it actually feels really comfortable in the full foot. Of course, the part where the rubber elements are will never truly soften up, because the rubber elements kind of integrated into little cavities in the upper, but overall, the full foot here fits really well. But essentially, the remake here does feel quite a lot like the original. I'll still maintain that the original maybe feels a little bit softer when broken in because it is K-leather, but apart from that, the fit is rather accommodating in both. When you break them in, the uppers become soft enough, but also have a certain amount of thickness to it. They feel like they have a little bit of body richness to the leather. It's not this super modern, thinly shaved leather. There's some character to the leather, and that is a good replica of what you got back in 2002, which I definitely appreciate. In terms of the rest of the fit here, you get this big opening, especially when you pull the tongue down, that allows you a good amount of space and especially also width to work with. So if you do have a wider foot, these I reckon will actually do a pretty good job of allowing you to adjust the fit to your liking. It also means that if you have a slightly more narrow foot, slim foot like I do, maybe you need to adjust the fit and use the top holes to get the best possible fit. But I'll get back to that. Because what I also do enjoy, a little bit at least, is the heel. I like the shape of it. It feels pretty effortless in the way that it grabs your foot, holds it in place, and it's pretty comfortable. However, with more modern boots having this suede-like liner on the inside here that starts to grab your foot and the sock when you start to sweat, having this smoother leather-like liner here, it's a little bit less grippy, meaning that I did have a little bit more movement in the heel that I'm used to with modern boots. And when you combine that with the fact that most people, I think, are gonna wear the tongue down, leaving the top lace hole empty, it does mean that the lockdown and the lock-in and the stability overall in the Predator isn't exactly market leading. That's not where the boot excels. And especially, again, if you do have a slightly more slim foot, you're probably gonna want to use the top lace hole just to get that slightly more snug and secure fit around the top of your foot. Which in turn sucks, because then you can't wear the tongue the right way. But then again, that's always been the case with the Mania. On the original, on all the remakes, and on this one. So it's kind of the name of the game. But when it comes to size, I've worn the two other colorways of the Made in Germany Manias here in my regular Adidas size 6.5. I went up half a size to a UK 7 in this, and I definitely recommend that you stay true to size. It's just a little bit too roomy and loose in places for me. But if you go true to size, I think you'll find this to be a pretty comfortable, rather, solid, adaptable, really accommodating fit where there is some room for you to work with and adjust. However, I'll also say that if you've tried by chance the 2020 Tormentor Mania remake, this is just a little bit softer because it is K-leather, and also there's just a little bit more volume and height in the Made in Germany remake here compared to this one. So just keep that in mind. But solid, I think, is a good word. And then, of course, there is the touch on the ball, which is where I feel the Mania remakes here really excel. Because just like the OGs and the 2020 remake, which for me is still the best Mania remake, this has a very, very solid connection on the ball. In turn, of course, because of the slightly thicker leather, but also because of this big, really, it's not a clean striking surface, but you just have this lovely big surface for connecting with the ball, where you have these rubber elements that sit almost inside the leather that both give you this really solid connection, almost like powerful connection on the ball, but of course also help you when you want to apply some swerve. And it feels as if it gives you a little bit of a tool to help you generate the spin on the ball. Of course, will it turn you into a Zidane or Beckham regen? No, not really. No boot will help you do that. But for me at least, it gave a little bit of like a mental boost when striking the ball that I really enjoyed. And while it won't, because of the thicker upper and the tongue and the overall slightly added bulkiness of the boot compared to modern boots, it's not gonna feel like an F50 Elite or a Predator Elite in terms of like that very close, sharp feel on the ball. It's rather good if you enjoy that slightly more solid, powerful sensation when you shoot or pass the ball. And in that case, I think you'll enjoy it. How about the outsole then? That hurts, don't do that. But about the outsole, it's the standard outsole that's also used on the Predator Elite, which means that you have this good, pretty solid base under the foot that has a good stability under the midfoot here, pretty good flex in the forefoot, and you have these decent triangular multi-purpose studs. So from a performance point of view on the outsole, I have no notes. However, I do feel that it's a little bit of a shame that Adidas have used the current Predator outsole on the remake here, not because of the performance, but because it simply doesn't allow the stripes to run down under the boot like it did on the OG from 2002. And if only Adidas had actually developed, an outsole, let's say 4 years ago, that allowed, they did. So they have the outsole from the Predator Mutator, which, again, from a performance point of view, it doesn't really matter. But I guess the key audience for this Predator remake is people that are nostalgic. And they... And while the boots have been assembled, put together in Scheinfeld, the actual upper piece is made somewhere else. And again, while it doesn't affect performance even one bit, the way Adidas have stitched together the upper here, one, the back piece here is leather and not this ribbed synthetic, and also it doesn't really run underneath the stripes. But what really bugs me is that the way it's been stitched together, meaning that it doesn't fully align with the actual stripes, so there's a little bit of a gap and something. It just looks a little bit messy and not as premium and with as much finesse as I would expect of a boot coming out of the Scheinfeld factory. And finally, another visual thing that doesn't really affect performance at all. But these stripes, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but the rubber elements are slightly gray. On the OG, they were white. This is 22 years old and it's still white. The stripes on the outside are white, but these rubber elements are slightly gray. Again, does it matter for performance? No, not at all. Do people care? 95% of people probably won't. But the problem is that the 5% that do care are probably also the ones that are most likely to want to buy the boot. And I'm nitpicking, I know, but it's just, it's so close. However, if you're not a super nitpicky, very detail-oriented nerd like myself, you'll probably also realize that when you have the boots on and the game is flowing, these little details, they don't really matter all that much. And all in all, I think that the latest Made in Germany Mania remake here is pretty solid. It's good. It's all round okay. It's made in Germany. That's a good story. It fits really well when you break it in, which is also cool. And also, it gives you this very faithful representation of what one of the most iconic Adidas boots actually feels like to play with in a more modern, lighter version. So, should you buy it? Well, the thing is that for me, if you own either the 2019 or 2020 Mania remake, I think those are slightly better. They're kangaroo leather, and also the details are a little bit more on point. But if you don't, and you want to try a lighter, more modern version of one of the most iconic boots out there, in the original colorway that looks absolutely sweet, if I might add, it's a very, very solid option. And it's fun and unique to play with. And if you want to buy it, you can do so in the link to Unisport right over there. But not, of course, guys and girls, before you tell me what you think of the Mania remake right here. And also, of course, if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to the channel with the notifications on. And if you want to watch more boot reviews, click the playlist right down there. With those words, I'll be signing off. Cheerio.